Welcome to another tutor short provided by the Educational Support Services Department of Lehigh Carbon Community College in Snexville, Pennsylvania, which is just outside of Allentown. These videos review key learnings for the science courses provided here at L-Tri-C. And please remember that the Educational Support Services Department does provide walk-in tutoring 5 days a week.
Hi, and welcome to Anatomy and Physiology 1, Tutor Short, the Nervous System, given by your tutors Laura Heck and Kim Rylander. First, we will go over the neuron. Here you can see the nucleus, the nucleolus, the mitochondria, the Golgi, all within the cell body. This part is known as the axon hillock, and here you have the axon. Focusing in on the axon, you can see that the axon is covered in this yellow stuff, known as the myelin sheath. In between the areas of myelin sheath, you have your nodes of Ranvier. The axon is what carries the action potential. The action potential is carried all the way down to the axon terminals, which you can see here. The axon terminals attach to the dendrites of the next cell body. And this is how messages are carried. Here you can see a cross-section of the spinal cord. You can see the white matter and the gray matter. The white matter consists of the dorsal column, the lateral column, and the ventral column. There's also an anterior commissure located here. You have your gray matter, which includes the dorsal gray horn, the lateral gray horn, and the ventral gray horn. And that is connected by the gray commissure. In the center, number 9 is pointing to the central canal. You have your ventral median fissure located here, and your dorsal median sulcus here. The ventral root located here is what carries your motor nerves from your spinal cord to the selected muscle that you would like to move. If you sense something hot with your hand, that sensation travels up through your arm and into the dorsal root located here. The cell bodies for those nerves are located here in the dorsal root ganglion. This is a lateral view of the brain. The B is known as Broca's area. If you have issues in Broca's area, you suffer from expressive aphasia. The W is Wernicke's area. If you have a lesion in Wernicke's area, you suffer from receptive aphasia. You can also see in this view the primary motor cortex located here, which is also known as the precentral gyrus. Here you have your central sulcus, which is followed by the primary somatosensory gyrus. It is also known as the postcentral gyrus. Other areas of note are the auditory area located here and the cerebellum located here. In this view, you can see the central sulcus located here. Again, the precentral gyrus and the postcentral gyrus. You have your frontal lobe up here and your occipital lobe back here. This is the right hemisphere of the brain, and this is the left. This is a lateral view of the brain. Again, the central sulcus, the precentral gyrus, the postcentral gyrus, the frontal lobe, the occipital lobe, the temporal lobe, the cerebellum, Broca's area, Wernicke's area. This is a posterior view of the brain. In this view, you can see the transverse fissure. This is a view of the left hemisphere of the brain. Here you can see the parietal occipital sulcus. You can also see the corpus callosum, located here. This connects the left and right hemispheres of the brain. You can see the lateral ventricle, the fornix, the posterior commissure, and the anterior commissure. You can see the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and you can see the left mammillary body. You can also see the choroid plexus. You can see the third ventricle and the aqueduct of the midbrain, which leads to the fourth ventricle. Here's the cerebellum. Note the arbor vitae. Here we have the corpora quadrigemina. The superior portion is known as the superior colliculi, and the inferior portion is known as the inferior colliculi. Here we have the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. Here's a view showing the cranial nerves coming from their origins. Cranial nerve 1, also known as the olfactory nerve. Its sensory function is smell. It has no motor function. Here you have cranial nerve 2, which is your optic nerve. Its sensory function is vision, and it has no motor function. This is the left optic nerve, and this is the left optic tract. Starting in the occipital lobe, the optic tracts come down and cross over. They cross at the optic chiasm. Here's cranial nerve 3, which is known as the oculomotor nerve. The oculomotor nerve has no sensory function. It controls the extraocular movements of the eye. Here's cranial nerve 4, which is known as the trochlear nerve. It has no sensory function, and it does have motor function. Here's cranial nerve 5, also known as the trigeminal nerve. It has sensory function for general sensation of the face, and it has motor function as well. It branches into 3 divisions: the ophthalmic division, the maxillary division, and the mandibular division. Here's cranial nerve 6, also known as the abducens nerve. It has no sensory function, and it does have motor function. It controls the lateral rectus muscle of the eye. Here's cranial nerve 7, also known as the facial nerve. It has a sensory function, which is taste, and it has motor function as well. The motor function controls your facial expressions. Here's cranial nerve 8, also known as the vestibulocochlear nerve. Its sensory function is hearing, and it also controls balance. Here is cranial nerve 9, also known as the glossopharyngeal nerve. Its sensory function is taste, and it also has some motor function. Here is cranial nerve 10, also known as the vagus nerve. Its sensory function is taste, and it also has motor function. Here is cranial nerve 11, also known as the accessory nerve. It does not have any sensory function, but it does have motor function. It innervates the sternocleidomastoid muscle and the trapezius muscle. Here is cranial nerve 12, also known as the hypoglossal nerve. It controls your tongue movements that contribute to swallowing and speech. Thanks for watching. To view these models, or if you have any questions, please come to SH 150 in the Educational Support Services Center.